Hey everybody, welcome to this week's Rod Martin Live. I'm here from Grace Hall yet again, but sans my buddy, Avilio Silvera, who's normally with us, is actually representing us in a meeting at the White House today with Secretary Mnuchin and President Trump. So we're happy for him, and we'll just have to make do without him. I also want to say thank you to all of the people who have worked so hard on hurricane relief in Texas. The hurricane problem is one we know all too well, having lost a home several years ago in Hurricane Ivan over in Gulf Breeze. So our hearts really go out to all those folks, and we're grateful, especially, let me single out Southern Baptist Disaster Relief. Believe it or not, Southern Baptists have the third largest disaster relief organization in America, behind only the American Red Cross and the Salvation Army. So be sure to go to NAMB.net, that's N-A-M-B, like North American Mission Board, NAMB.net, and check out their disaster relief page. Donate or volunteer if you can. It really, really does make a difference. And I would add to that with Hurricane Irma bearing down apparently on our own home state of Florida, probably up the East Coast, but it's a little too early to know for sure, our hearts and prayers go out to all the folks in this state and wherever else that storm may affect, including places like Necker Island, where Richard Branson's home was just destroyed. So we sure do feel for all the people in the Caribbean, and we hope that you'll be praying for all of them. Let's get started. North Korea has been continuing to be very much in the news, and as you know, we've talked a lot about it on rodmartin.org over the last number of months, but also for many, many years, because this is not a new problem. This problem is a continuing one, exacerbated rather dramatically by a series of presidents who have handled it exceedingly poorly. Bill Clinton thought that he had solved this problem. George W. Bush thought that he had solved this problem. Barack Obama thought he solved every problem. None of them did. None of them touched it. All of them gave the Kims exactly what they wanted: time. But not only time, money. Lots of money, fuel oil, nuclear technology, whatever it was to punt the ball. They did not ever solve the problem. There are good reasons for that. There are bad reasons for that. But the reality is it's all coming to a head. As you know, a few days ago, North Korea at least purported to test a hydrogen bomb. Now, some of you don't know the difference between hydrogen bombs and atomic bombs. Yes, I've got something in my eye here. We're just going to have to live with it. This isn't Fox News. The hydrogen bomb is a very, very different thing from a simple fission device, an atomic bomb, as it were. We dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. By the way, we just had VJ Day, and hats off to all our remaining World War II veterans. Those guys did the right thing in dropping those bombs on those cities, because the net result of that was fewer dead than died in our conventional bombings of Tokyo and other cities, but the saving of 10 million Japanese lives in the coming invasion and 1 million American dead, at least. An atomic bomb, if you've ever gone to Hiroshima, is a big deal, but not the end of the world. Hiroshima is a thriving city. Sometimes we publish on rodmartin.org a meme, in fact, that shows the beauty of modern Hiroshima juxtaposed against the horror of slums in Detroit. And the tagline on that meme is, it is literally better to survive an atomic blast than 70 years of Democrat rule. That is almost literally true. An atomic bomb has a tremendous amount of power. The Hiroshima bomb, about the equivalent of 20,000 tons of TNT, or 20 kilotons. But a hydrogen bomb is quite another thing entirely. A fission device merely splits the atom. A fusion device unleashes the power of the sun. It actually uses a fission device like the bomb at Hiroshima to cause a fusion reaction, pushing hydrogen atoms together, literally like what happens every day in the sun and other stars. This produces a vastly greater explosion. This is a truly dangerous thing. The much, much more dangerous thing about it, though, for a country like North Korea that even under the best of circumstances will have a very limited number of these devices with which it could hit American cities, is the fact that these devices can be used, exploded at high altitude, to cover an extremely large swath of U.S. territory with something called electromagnetic pulse. Now, in our last Rod Martin Live, I was here with Frank Gaffney, who's the head of the Center for Security Policy. Frank explained a little bit to you about EMP. An electromagnetic pulse can destroy the electrical grid, it can destroy sensitive electronics, wipe out your iPhone, wipe out the computers that run our economy, wipe out all of the sensitive instruments that make a modern economy possible. Long story short, millions starve to death, potentially. This is a really terrible thing. And most of the equipment that would make it possible to repair and replace the damage would itself be destroyed without having exploded it. We're not talking about a conventional type bombing or even a nuclear type bombing. We're talking about, again, an electromagnetic pulse, an electronic wave, as it were, from the outskirts of space. Now, the problem for us is North Korea has the capability now to launch satellites. This actually is the ideal scenario for them. 2 or 3 of these hydrogen bombs they appear to have tested, placed over the United States at a key moment in a couple of satellites, and the United States could be knocked back into primitive times very fast with millions of deaths as a result. This is something Donald Trump has to take seriously, and I'm pleased to say he seems to be. The United States is acting very, very strongly with regard to North Korea. You may have noticed a few weeks ago when he gave a speech in which he said that if Kim Jong-un were to follow through on his threat to fire a missile at Guam, that fire and fury would fall upon them such as the world had never seen. You may recognize that terminology. Most of the media didn't, but you may, because people who pay attention to rodmartin.org are smarter than the average bear. Fire and fury like the world has never seen, those are words lifted directly out of Harry Truman's speech after the explosion over Hiroshima. It was his warning that if Japan didn't surrender, there would be more atomic bombings. 3 days later, the United States bombed Nagasaki. Donald Trump's speech was on the anniversary of the Nagasaki bombing, August 9th of this year. He knew exactly what message he was delivering to Kim Jong-un, to China, and to Japan. We'll see what happens, but Nikki Haley at the UN saying that North Korea is begging for war is a pretty clear statement. Korea cannot continue in this vein. We cannot tolerate the very clear and present danger that we are facing to the future of America, its population, and all of Western civilization. If Kim does not back down, and if sanctions don't work, and they almost never do, there may actually be a need to go to war. I haven't really said that before, but that's the reality today. You can only push so far before a competent, serious America has to act. It's the president's duty to protect the people of the United States. You can argue about many of the wars we have engaged in the last century. You cannot argue about a direct threat to millions of Americans. We need to pray for Donald Trump at this time. We need to be very serious about what North Korea is saying, and we need to take their words very seriously. This is a dangerous moment. It doesn't have to be as dangerous as it could be. So let's move on from that. DACA is the order of the day, as you know. Now, of course, DACA is Barack Obama's illegal executive order that purports to legalize around 800,000 children of illegal immigrants who actually came to the United States through no obvious fault of their own while they were children. We can make a lot of different arguments about whether these so-called dreamers should be allowed to stay in the United States or not. There are good arguments on either side. There's no question that one of the things we would be doing if we let them stay is give opportunity and encouragement to other people outside the country to bring their children into the country in hopes of the next amnesty. There's also no question that we would be creating a whole bunch of new Democrat voters for no obvious good reason. And on the other side, there is the very real argument, and a legitimate one, that for the most part, these children came here at the age of 6 on average, and they've never known any home except America. We certainly want to have compassion for that. However, I do want to look at this a bit critically. First, DACA was blatantly unconstitutional. And I want to thank Donald Trump for having the guts to say so and to act on it. The president's action was specifically to undo the unlawful executive order that Barack Obama promulgated, and at the same time give Congress 6 months to act. Now, it's Donald Trump. He doesn't give things away for free. So my guess is, I don't have individual knowledge of this, it's not like I've spoken to the president about it, but it strikes me strongly that the president has set up the Democrats here. He will get his wall. I don't know if he'll get it from this, but he will get it, and he may get it from this. Setting up a congressional action, which is the way this should have been done in the first place if it was to be done. Actual legislation, actually signed by the president, means that the president's going to get the final say. There's absolutely no way for Congress to do this without the president, because there's absolutely not a veto-proof majority for DACA legislation. So the president's going to have them over a barrel. If he uses that in the way that he normally uses that, I think that it's fair to say that Donald Trump is about to get his wall fully funded. Hopefully, he will also get his absolutely outstanding new immigration plan. That immigration reform would be a fundamental change to how we do immigration in this country, and much for the better. It would significantly improve the number of H-1B visas available, for instance. It would create a merit-based system instead of the current lottery. If you bring something of value to America, you get preferential treatment, like speaking English, like bringing a business, like bringing assets, like bringing advanced degrees. These are things that help America. They are much, much to be preferred to peasant farmers with no skills who are likely to end up on welfare. At the same time, it doesn't exclude any of those people either. It merely gives preference to letting people in who help America. This is a good thing. It's a smart thing, and it's the kind of thing you would expect from a business leader like Donald Trump. So I'm in support of his immigration plan, and I suspect that there's a pretty decent chance that if Donald Trump is true to form, we're going to get the wall, and we're going to get a significantly improved overall immigration law out of DACA. But at the same time, a lot of people are telling us that it is cruel and heartless to question the status of these, again, so-called dreamers. So let's examine that for a second, because you have a right to know. You probably do not know that the average dreamer is now 26 years old. This is somebody who has lived here long enough and is now an adult for their illegal status to be their own doing. Yeah, they may have been brought here as a child, but they're not a child now. There is absolutely no reason that they couldn't go home except their desire to stay. Well, I desire a whole lot of things, but it doesn't mean I get to do them. These people are not innocent. These people are absolutely guilty of the same crime that their parents committed. So let's be clear-headed about that as we debate it. We don't have to throw out compassion. We don't even have to not legalize them necessarily, but pretending that up is down and black is white and good is bad and bad is good is never a healthy thing in anything, but especially in a public policy debate. These 26-year-old adults, not children, adults, choose to be here illegally. What's more, DACA was unconstitutional. It is absolutely wrong for the president to continue it. If Congress chooses to act, so be it. But the president did right. Barack Obama acted as a tyrant. Donald Trump acted as a president under the law and under the Constitution. Let's think about these so-called kids again, these 26-year-old on average adults. These adults are in the exact same position, if you think about it, as the children of Bernie Madoff. Now, you may remember old Bernie. Bernie stole billions of dollars from his investors a few years ago, and he rightly went to prison. Now, his children didn't know that he was a criminal, but they lived a billionaire lifestyle. And you know what? That's pretty good. I bet you'd like to live a billionaire lifestyle too. And if you were living a billionaire lifestyle and suddenly you had to not live a billionaire lifestyle, I suspect that would seem cruel too. Is it really right to say that just because a parent did something wrong, there may never be any consequences that affect anyone else? Because if so, the taxpayers of this country, you and I, owe Bernie Madoff's children a billionaire lifestyle. That's just reality. Of course there are consequences, and of course they're just. This is why you should not commit crimes, because when you do, they affect more than just yourself. Finally, let's talk about the jingoism of this. Now, I marvel because I constantly hear from liberals about how terrible America is. In fact, I would include in that more than a few preachers who tell us that America is a uniquely sinful and dreadful place. I personally was not aware that they didn't have greed or crime or such things in other countries that are considered mission fields, but it seems like a lot of pastors and missionaries today seem to think that no one's farts stink except America's. So, let's just go with that. If America is in fact such a terrible place, why are they arguing now that it would be cruel and unusual punishment for these so-called dreamers to have to go home? Why are they so jingoistic in favor of America? Why do they think that America is the only place on earth where you can possibly live and it not be cruel? This is just nonsense. This is propaganda, and it's certainly shallow thinking, particularly on the part of some pastors. I saw a story in the news this week as a result of the president's action that was lamenting that some pastor was saying that many of our church leaders, many of the next generation of Christians in this country are dreamers, and how could we do without them? And I just want to ask, isn't one of the main requirements of being a church leader that you not be a criminal? What is wrong with these people? This is completely whack. So I want to encourage everyone to have some clear thinking. Plenty of Americans retire to Mexico, retire to Central America. I have daughters and a wife, and I see plenty of HGTV. So I can tell you, I am constantly bombarded with House Hunters International and people moving to Costa Rica and Mexico. I don't want to hear that these are terrible places that no one could possibly live without it being a horror. That's ridiculous. No. The United States has every right to enforce its immigration laws in the same way that every country on earth does. The Pope recently said that it was an evil thing to have a wall on the southern border, which is funny because Vatican City, his country, is completely surrounded by a really tall wall. I don't want to hear this nonsense and muddled thinking. If we choose to legalize the dreamers, so be it. That's fine. But let's be clear about the consequences and let's be clear about the morality of it. If we do it, it's a gift. If we do it, it is grace. It is not a moral duty. It is not a requirement. And it is certainly not undoing some cruelty. If there was cruelty in this, it was done to them by their parents. It was not done by you. So let's be clear. Finally, we're getting down toward the end, so I want to address one more issue topic before we go to our closing. Trump made a deal this week that has a lot of conservative panties in a wad. I'm really conservative, so you would think that my panties would also be in a wad, but in fact, I'm male and I don't wear panties. So let's just go back to Trump. Trump made a deal with Nancy Pelosi and Chucky Schumer. That has to be terrible, right? And moreover, specifically, the deal is this. He wants to give them Harvey relief attached to a clean debt ceiling raise for 3 months, which of course punts it off to around Christmas time. Now, this blindsided Paul Ryan. This blindsided Mitch McConnell. Needless to say, they were unhappy. So were lots of the Never Trump crowd, like Eric Erickson and Steve Deace and all of these guys who honestly would say that if Donald Trump walked on water, the man couldn't swim. There is plenty of criticism to go around from normal quarters, and I would normally probably agree. Why on earth would we want to give them a debt ceiling increase without some kind of string attached? That just seems odd. But it's not odd at all. Do we really want to be fighting over a government shutdown in the middle of September? I thought we wanted to pass tax reform. Do we not want to pass tax reform? Let's talk tax reform for a second. Is it not obvious that, and if it isn't obvious to you, you need to read what I've written about this on rodmartin.org. You need to sign up for the Rod Martin Report, by the way, which you can do at rodmartin.org/NAC. That's for New American Century, because that's the name of the special report I'm going to give you for free when you sign up for the Rod Martin Report. So rodmartin.org/NAC for New American Century, and you sign up and you get the Rod Martin Report, and you too can stay informed on just why these things matter. You can read about the world anywhere, but you come to rodmartin.org to understand it. So part of that understanding is to understand that Donald Trump's tax reform plan is just brilliant. It truly is, because what it does is it does something that we need to do. America has the highest corporate income tax in the industrialized world. It's completely uncompetitive, and it's driving businesses in droves offshore. So we're losing American jobs every time that happens, and it's completely needless. It's not because the American worker isn't competitive. It's not because America isn't a better place to do business. It's because America is too expensive a place to do business, entirely artificially, because your government is run by greedy bastards. Donald Trump is actually trying to fix that. We actually reduced that tax rate to what was then the lowest corporate income tax rate in the world when Ronald Reagan was president. From that example, countries around the world learned the lesson. When their jobs flowed here, they cut their tax rates under ours, and now we're the worst. Donald Trump gets it and has actually proposed a plan to bring that down. Now, you know what happens the minute he does that. Everybody on the left, and more than a few rhinos, instantly scream, "Oh, tax cuts for the rich." Bogus. Corporations don't pay taxes. They just tack on the bill to you. When you buy toilet paper, you're paying the toilet paper company's tax bill. Are we so stupid we don't see that? Do you think ExxonMobil pays income taxes? No. Their shareholders pay income taxes, and you pay income taxes, their income taxes, every time you pay at the pump. Corporate income taxes are a scam anyway. They're a double tax on you. But most people don't understand that. So, since they don't, you know, if we propose a cut on income taxes for corporations, oh, that's terrible. That's helping the rich. No, it's helping the working man. But that's not the point, because Donald Trump took the issue away from them in what is truly the most brilliant strategy of my lifetime. Donald Trump coupled that with the same tax cut, 15% for corporations, down from 35%, 15% for small business owners too. Oh my gosh. If you have a partnership, if you have an S corporation, if you have an LLC, if you're mom and pop's grocery down the street, you get the same deal, the exact same deal as Exxon. It's incredible, and it's something the Democrats would never, ever do. They want to hit mom and pop with a 35% tax. In fact, a 39.4% tax at present. They want to hit them with all these Obamacare taxes too. They want to hit them with dividends and cap gains taxes too. They want to make it impossible for mom and pop to rise up the ladder. And you know what else? While they're helping their fat cat donors and they're screwing over mom and pop, do you know what else the Democrats are doing? Then they're hitting them with a death tax when they die. You would think taxes could end when you die, but no. They're going to steal another half of everything they made in their whole life, which they already got taxed all the way along. This is wrong, people. This is evil. And we should call evil evil. It's wrong. The president's tax package eliminates all of that for mom and pop. Not just for Exxon, for mom and pop. That's brilliant. That's game-changing. And if a small business owner can be taxed at 15%, you know what happens next. Every waitress, everybody in a big company is going to figure out a way to be an independent contractor and not an employee. They're all going to become a small business. They're all going to get taxed at 15%. We're going to decouple health care from employers and make it portable again. Everything gets better, and not just better, lots better, because what you're really going to see is this. You're going to see economic growth that approaches that of China. We've been suffering under Obama with 2% and even 1.6% economic growth. The post-war average, and the war we're talking about, of course, is World War II. The post-war average is double what Obama managed. We're talking about double that. That's what we're trying to do. Now, here's the thing. Do you want tax reform to get mucked up in some mind-numbing battle over a debt ceiling we're going to raise anyway, and everybody knows we're going to raise it, so that Paul Ryan can strut around and posture? That's BS. That's ridiculous. So here's what Donald Trump did. He made a deal with the Democrats, which pushes that off into Christmas. And we're going to work on tax reform between now and Thanksgiving. That's brilliant. That's smart. It also gets Harvey relief out there to people who desperately need it. But let me tell you what else he just did. Donald Trump just put Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell on notice. Guys, I can do business without you. And by the way, the Freedom Caucus too. Now, I love the Freedom Caucus. I think those guys are the best. I love Mark Meadows. I love them all. But he put them on notice too. Guys, I can do business without you. Now, if you're a master negotiator like Donald Trump, do you want to have all the cards or just a few? What has been the problem with the Republicans up to here? It has been they can't get their act together. They have power. They have both houses of Congress. They can't do business because they cannot unite. Donald Trump just showed them that they can unite or they can become irrelevant. And that was the best move of the week. Let's close out on this. We just had Labor Day. It was in September, you may have noticed. It was not on May Day or International Working Men's Day. Nope, it wasn't. May Day, as you know, the high holy day of communism, was established to celebrate the Haymarket riots in Chicago in 1882. It was seen as the beginning of the proletarian revolution. Turned out not to be, thank God, because this is America, and we'll get to that in a second. There's a reason socialism never took root here. But it did take root around the world, and more than 80 countries celebrate their version of Labor Day, International Working Men's Day, on the 1st of May. May Day is communist. May Day is socialist at best. May Day is an exploitation of all that is good, and certainly of the working man. The dictatorship of the proletariat is supposed to be the working class dictating to others, but it's actually always the Socialist Party dictating to the working man. If you don't believe it, look at Venezuela and Cuba. They are the prime examples in the world. And the numbskulls running around in Che Guevara shirts are to be commended for their amazing ability to function in the world without a brain. It's terrible. No, Labor Day was established in the United States as far from May Day as it could be, the entire other end of summer. This was deliberate. Congressional leaders and President Grover Cleveland, a Democrat to his great credit, established Labor Day all the way back in 1887, deliberately not May Day. Now, we celebrate the working man in America, but we don't celebrate his exploitation. We celebrate his right to work any way he wants, anywhere he wants. America was a frontier in those days still. If a working man didn't like the conditions of his labor in a factory in Philadelphia or Pittsburgh, he could find his way across the Platte and start a homestead. That was the vision, by the way, of Abraham Lincoln, who in the tradition of Thomas Jefferson's belief in an empire of liberty and a nation of freeholders, actually made it a reality by sponsoring the legislation to create the Transcontinental Railroad, which made it possible to fill in what was then called the Great American Desert. Not the Great Plains, not the breadbasket of the world, the Great American Desert, if you can imagine such a thing, because it was unusable and empty. And so they made the infrastructure to fill it in, and then they gave an offer to anybody who wanted it. 160 acres of your own, in a world of serfdom, sharecroppers, tenant farmers, absentee landlords who took the money from the worker. No, the Homestead Act was about everyone an entrepreneur, everyone a small business owner, everyone have a future. In those days, they didn't have a lot of college, they didn't have a lot of VOTEC, they didn't have a lot of ability for people to start tech companies, but they certainly did have the ability for everybody to own a stake in the system and everybody to create in their own way without anybody else's interference. That's what the Homestead Act did. And while Lincoln was destroying slavery and the aristocracy that comes with slavery in the South, he was making the entire rest of the country from sea to shining sea, a land of entrepreneurship, of ownership. That's America. That's why Labor Day is in September. So I hope you had a great one. We're going to wind things up here. I do want to speak to the greatness of America. I honestly don't care if we legalize the Dreamers. I know that'll bother some of you, and I apologize for that. I know they're all going to vote Democrat, and that's going to be another thing for us to overcome. But if we're going to do it, we need to do it constitutionally. And if we're going to do it, we need to do it in a way that serves the greater goal of real borders, real enforcement, and a better immigration system. We can have that. We're right there. And Donald Trump's maneuvering this week set the stage for it. We'll see if he follows through. And even if he follows through, we have yet to see if he can be successful. These are hard fights. He can't just wave his wand and make it happen. He doesn't rule by decree like his predecessor with a pen and a phone. No, Donald Trump's doing a pretty good job. I was exceedingly skeptical. I am extremely pleased. You go anywhere you want to read about the world. You come to rodmartin.org to understand it. It is a joy to get to spend this time with you today. I hope you will come back next week when we do it again. I also hope that you'll sign up for the Rod Martin Report on rodmartin.org. We send it out usually once a week, except all the times that we don't. Sometimes we joke that it's a weekly column published monthly, but we don't fill up your inbox. It's not gonna tax your time. It is very insightful though, and it is read by billionaires and U.S. senators and White House staff and a lot of other people who take it very seriously, so you should too. The Rod Martin Report, which you can sign up for at rodmartin.org/NAC. NAC for New American Century, because that's the name of the special report I'm going to give you for free when you sign up. So rodmartin.org/NAC, you can sign up and get the Rod Martin Report and the New American Century entirely for free. And you can start to have better understanding of the events unfolding around you, not just the what, but the why and how they interconnect. We're always grateful to share this time with you. Thank you for being here for this edition of Rod Martin Live. And we'll do it again next week. And once again, our prayers go out to all the people in Texas and in Florida. We wish you well and safe journeys.